Welcome everyone to Talking Hands.
Hey guys!
It's been a little while. I'm the Prodigal Fool. I'm joined by my co-blogger on the Prodigal Guide, Straight Six.
Hey folks.
And tonight we're looking at a watch which in many ways brings us back to the very beginning of Talking Hands. The very first episode we ever recorded of Talking Hands was on this watch brand, Linde Werdelin, the Danish stroke Notting Hill based watchmaker of very distinctive watches. We have tonight their SpidoSpeed model in steel. So this is their chronograph model.
And more recent? Because when we were doing it the first time a couple of years back...
This is much more recent. This has only been out for a couple of years, I believe.
Okay.
So they brought this out in Basel 2 years ago.
Okay, perfect.
And it's their first chronograph model, and it has what has since become associated with the brand as their most distinctive case design, the skeletonized case.
Punching holes, basically, right?
Well, punching... I'm sure, I suspect they might tell you it's a bit more complex. I don't think they just sort of yak away at it.
No.
There's a slightly more complex process there. Inspired, in their words, by F1 car chassis design. So the case body is kind of drilled out. So you just have the bare essentials. And what they're trying to do here, apparently, is weight reduction.
Okay, but actually, if you hold it in your hands...
Yeah, I mean, thank God they did, because I'd hate to feel the weight of it if they hadn't skeletonized it, because it's pretty heavy as it is. But I mean that in a good way. I mean, it's got a lovely weight to it, but it's certainly not a light watch, in my view anyway. But it's robust, it's stylish, and more importantly, utterly distinctive, I think. This is very much a case design that you wouldn't mistake for anything else. I suppose the closest would probably be the Hublots. It has a slight Hublot-esque look to it, but really, to me, it's a very distinctive looking piece.
Or maybe if you could argue in a higher price scale, maybe some of the Audemars Piguet offshores, but something else.
I think it's more modern than that, but let's get into that in a second. Let me just run you through the basics of the watch. So as I said, it's a chronograph. There were apparently 32 components to this case. It's got a 2.2mm anti-reflective sapphire crystal. It also has a back case, a very, I think, nice success. Oops.
There we go.
How much can I?
Okay, there you go. Here, let me hold it.
Sapphire crystal back case. You can see the spider web engravings there, and the rotor, of course. Very, very successful, I think, that. Screw-in crown here, and of course the push button for the chronographs here. First impressions, hugely positive. This is a watch which, well, it starts off at an advantage because it's a chronograph, which is a personal favourite of mine. Of all the complications that you can have, the chrono has always been my favourite because it actually has some utility in real life.
Really, because you think people use chronographs these days?
I do. Timing eggs.
Timing your RS6 from 0 to 100.
There are all sorts of no, but genuinely,
okay.
With the exception of perhaps a date, I think the chronograph is a useful complication and one that you can have the benefits of watching very easily. There's a lot of movement there on the dial, which I love.
Yeah, like things happen.
So it's a chrono, so already it's sort of got my heart, but it is absolutely not the kind of chrono that I would normally be drawn to, and in fact, to illustrate that point, I brought along a few of the chronos in my personal collection.
Ooh, hello!
That I really do love.
But this is a little bit unfair, right? I mean, you're bringing on some very seriously classic chronos here: an Amiga Speedmaster, and a
vintage
Breitling.
Speedmaster from Amiga, vintage Breitling, and a more contemporary but still very, very classic IWC Portuguese chrono. And I bring them just to illustrate to you my personal taste. If you talk to me about what attracts you to chronos, this is the sort of look that I love, the sort of classic sports watch look.
Okay,
now,
so if I take all these three things, I move them over to one
away,
side,
and then all of a sudden,
and then this comes in, and what happens?
And my first reaction was, ooh, crikey, this is a very modern-looking watch. But a few seconds later, I strapped it to my wrist, and it instantly feels great.
Yeah,
it's very comfortable on the wrist.
Great.
It looks right. Even though it's 44 mils, you think, oh, this is going to be a monster, but actually you strap it on, and I'll do that in a second. It feels great. And it just has a wonderful presence, and you warm to it, or at least I did, almost immediately. Hugely successful dial design, I think, in terms of the subtle complexity that's in there. Lots and lots of lovely details there.
Okay. So you're sold by the case, you're sold by the dial, you're sold by the proposition that this is a progression from the old chronos.
Exactly. I'm a staunch conservative, actually. I don't like change of any kind. I'd be very happy to just stick to the way it's always been, and that would be fine. So I'm not easily persuaded to adopt something new like this, but for me, this completely and utterly works. It is just a hugely successful design. Now, last point I want to make very quickly is the The strap, I was very, very taken by.
What is this, by the way?
To be honest, I don't know. It's.
Is it leather or is it rubber?
No, they say it's calf. It's textured though. It doesn't feel like calf leather.
It's
almost nylon-esque.
Yeah,
but
weird.
no, it is apparently leather, and it just has a great feel and a great look. It harks back to the sort of driving watch, the perforated.
So like Hoyer, Carrera kind of a feel, right?
Exactly, but I just think it goes very well with the watch. Just the whole thing works. It feels integrated.
Okay.
And I've just really enjoyed how distinctive it is, I think.
Okay.
So I am just massively impressed with it, and wasn't expecting to be at all.
I would definitely support your position, which
Let
is...
me take these old things out of the
Oh
way.
yeah,
It
these crusty pieces.
Crusty old
So we'll leave the new. So point one, I think, is it was actually incredibly comfortable to wear, and that was not the case with the earlier versions. The earlier versions actually did kind of bite into your wrists as you kind of moved around, up and down, right? Things didn't quite work out for you. The second part is it is far more discreet than the earlier versions of the pieces from Linde Werdelin. So I think this is definitely a step in the right direction. And actually, for a chrono, it kind of fits. It kind of works. We'll get to it in the bad. I mean, I have some hesitations about where all of this is going. But fundamentally, I think on first impressions, it's distinctive, it's different, you'll get noticed. So you know where this leads us, right?
The downsides?
Downsides, please.
Look, I think the first thing is it's a bigger watch than I would be normally comfortable with, and that takes some getting used to. It's certainly a watch that I'd be a lot more comfortable wearing casually than I would be under a suit. I wore it to the office today, and I just about got away with it, but I can't say that it felt.
Well, it's casual wear, right?
Yeah, to
or
me,
sport wear.
Yeah, it is more casual. And there were plenty of guys who would wear it with a suit and not think twice about it. But for me, it was just a little bit on the wrong side of that. But that's fine. There are plenty of, that's not necessarily a problem in its own right. Look, other than that, the only other negative is the price. It's a very, very expensive watch, right?
What are we talking about?
It retails in the UK for just over £9,000, right? So it's £8,100 excluding VAT. So add some VAT, i.e. 20% to that, and it's an expensive watch.
And how many of them do they make?
Now, that's the flip side of the cost, right? This is a limited production run of 100 watches for this particular model, for the steel model. Each model in the range is limited to those sorts of numbers.
Oh, this reminds me of Panerai.
Well, I mean, Panerai is a much higher volume producer than little old Linde Werdelin. I mean, these guys are a boutique manufacturer, and there's a lot to be said for that, right? You're not likely to bump into anyone else wearing this one.
Oh, I've never seen anybody else wear this.
One more that I would raise. You know me, I'm a very conservative watch buyer. I stick to the traditional brands. If you haven't been around for at least 100 years, I'm kind of a bit wary of you. And of course, this is a new brand. And who knows what the future holds for them? Will they be around in 100 years? Is this a collector's piece? What happens to the brand? No, those are all unknowns. You buy a Patek or a Rolex or an IWC or a Jaeger, and you've got a lifetime of history already behind them. And so, if you're the conservative watch buyer, then that might trouble you. If, on the other hand, you're adventurous and you want something different, then that also works to your advantage.
Tell me, so just one thing, because we're on the bad, and I'm not suggesting that's where you have to fold into, but tell me a little bit about the looks of it, the aesthetics. Do you think this is an aesthetic design that will last, that will go the distance? I mean,
that's hard, right? So it's got a lot of the sort of Terminator, Star Trek, sort of science fiction, the whole skeletonized thing.
So
I'm just getting it on off camera. I haven't left the room or anything. I just want to search you on my wrist. Look, taste is a personal thing, right? I think this is an extremely well-balanced design. As I said, I think it's very distinctive. Will it look great in 20 years' time? Who knows? But I'd give it a very good chance.
I find the price to be exorbitant.
The price is heavy going. So
it's not just heavy going, it's exorbitant.
Does the fact, why do you say that?
Well, because quite frankly, guys, if you're up at the £8,000-9,000 mark, whether it's new or second hand, you could buy a huge amount of watches for that. And I'm not happy to just kind of be stuck within, well, it's a chronograph, so if you can't buy a chronograph for 8 or 9 grand, then that's not good enough. I think the point is that this is a very rarefied space that Linde Werdelin elected to go into.
Of course.
And I think kudos to them. It takes balls to do it. I think they've done a huge amount of the work. I'm not sure that I'm convinced that this can batten up against all these established brands that you've talked about.
But in what sense?
Well, in the sense of it's heavy, it's modern, it's skeletonized, and hey ho, in 5-10 years, is this going to look like anything we want to keep on our wrist?
Well,
I simply don't know.
Yeah, no one knows. No one knows. But
Well. I'm wearing something that I think in 5-10 years, I don't think there'll be an issue from a design perspective.
No. That's you're saying that with the benefit of hindsight. It's very easy to say, it's the de facto choice. Oh, I bought a Rolex Explorer 2. Yes, because it's got 50 years of history, my friend. But come back 50 years later and look at this, and you'll know.
Okay, but hold on. So I have a response to that. I bought a Schofield Signalman, right? Which is a new watch.
Now that is a much better comparison.
All right.
Because that is a very distinctive design in its own right.
Exactly. And by the way, half the price. It's not a chronograph, but it has a power reserve, it's got a date function.
Yep.
And I find that to be a wholly more enticing and convincing, incredible buy than this.
That's that is finally an interesting comparison.
Okay.
I would suggest to you that this is a better purchase than Schofield.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
At twice the price?
Yeah.
Why?
I think the design is better sorted. I think that I was going to say the quality is better. That's simply not fair.
No,
That's simply not fair. But it has a.
And you and I couldn't even know that from this
exactly. I
discussion.
couldn't gauge it. So that's actually not it's a completely subjective assessment that I was just making there. But I don't know.
Well, you think the look and feel of this is better?
Yes, the look, the feel, the detailing, and also, we've talked about this before, but a watch is not just a watch, right? There's the branding behind it, the marketing, the positioning of the brand overall, and I've always loved what Linde Werdelin have done in terms of promoting their watches, and they're very avant-garde when it comes to their marketing as well. So.
And by the way, look, I mean,
when it comes down to it, it's just what you like, right? I mean, the Schofield I have a lot of respect for, and God, you've actually laid down your own cash for it.
Yeah,
but it's not something that I would ever buy, whereas I would see myself putting my own money down on one of these, because it's just a design that sings to my heart more.
Yeah.
In a way the Schofield doesn't, and the reverse is true for you.
Yeah, so hold on.
And they're both complete gambles.
Oh,
from
agreed.
a longevity
because neither you nor I know whether these guys will be around, or whether Charles Ellis from Schofield
will be around. You give your
Rolex
to your son in 20 years' time, you know he's going to love it.
Yeah, agreed.
The Schofield and a few other sort of new brands might look good in 20 years' time. They may not.
All right, so two things. So two things, because we're talking about the bad, and I think these are all challenges to the Linde Werdelin proposition, is that the Schofield I find to be aesthetically significantly more studied and serious, and actually of a higher caliber than the Linde Werdelin. That's point one. And if we actually look at it from just a construct, right, in terms of the physical watch itself, I find the Schofield to be so much more polished and refined. I find it, and not only that, but the marketing, the materials, the collateral that surrounds it, to be so much more well studied.
Fair enough.
And by the way, hold on, wait, not finished. At half the price.
Yeah, okay.
That's the bad.
But look, let's not fall into the trap of just turning this into a straight comparison between this and the Schofield, because that's not fair either. But I think that the general point is, with a watch like this, you are taking a bit of a punt, and you very much have to it has to sink to your heart. If it doesn't,
don't bother.
Exactly.
You won't go there.
The price is definitely a stumbling block. There's no doubt about that.
It's like a Berlin Wall.
It's on the pricey side, but you're buying a watch which is a very low production run and very limited. So, it depends. What sort of value do you put on exclusivity? That's up to every individual buyer. But from a looks perspective, from a quality perspective, from a branding perspective, I think this
all works for you.
Yeah, it works for me. It's just fantastic.
Okay.
It's fantastic.
All right.
I probably don't quite have the balls personally
to do it. It's a little bit like when you said to me that you admired the fact that I bought a Schofield, but we'd never do the same thing.
Absolutely. When it comes to my hard-earned cash, I would probably come really, really close and then think, oh, crikey, no.
What would you buy instead?
Oh, I'd go and buy a Nodamas Piguet or something, right? Because there's 400 years, 500,000 years of history.
Yeah, exactly back in the beginning of time.
But as I'm saying that, I acknowledge that is a very, in a way, a very dull choice. And I would in a way, I would wish that I was the sort of person who would take a punt on something as daring and as new and fresh and distinctive as this.
As the Linde Werdelin.
Yeah.
I think it's an excellent conclusion on your side. Here's where I come out. I'm willing to take this kind of a gamble on a limited edition, very small brand, an uncertain future in a lot of ways. I think you and I rightfully recognize at a certain price point. I was willing to do it at the Schofield. I would absolutely not do it at double the price, which is what this thing is coming in at. And I don't care whether it's a chrono or not, that's irrelevant to me. It's not about the complication, it's about here's a low volume, unknown brand offering watches at these price points. And to be truthful with you, I'm not really convinced by the aesthetics.
Love the aesthetics.
I know you do, but if you gave me the choice about it, I just say, sorry, it's not good enough. It's still rough around the edges. That's right. My bottom line is no.
I'm putting it on.
Yeah, my bottom line is no.
I truly hope that I get to keep it on. I'm dreading the day when we have to return this, actually, because we do have to return it.
I know. It's your responsibility to return it.
I want to hang on to it. I'm not giving it back.
Okay. So what we're basically saying is, Linde Werdelin, come and get him, guys.
Oh, but they know where we live.
Oh, we're in trouble. To your very good health. Thanks for coming with us tonight.
See you next time.
Cheers. Take care.